Hey guys, it's David Figueroa here, and I'm back with another episode of the Cerebral Palsy and Fitness Podcast. I have DJ Nicholson. She is the CEO and founder of Inclusivity, and she's also a former educator. So welcome, DJ.
Thank you. Thank you. And David, my business is Inclusivology.
Inclusivology. I'm sorry, Inclusivology.
Inclusivology. No worries at all.
Yeah. So I'm definitely excited to have you here, and feel free to share with us a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I was a 20-year veteran educator. I worked in a variety of different settings with different kinds of disabilities. I've worked with children with behavior disorders, significant cognitive disabilities, learning disabilities, language impairments. I've kind of run the gamut of that in my 20 years in the classroom. And then after that, I worked for 6 years in our special ed department in a large Florida district. And I was an instructional coach and a trainer, and worked, really closely with teachers and administrators on how to provide effective instruction, how to provide as much inclusion as possible, taking into consideration least restrictive environments and things like that.
Now, what made you decide to one day after 26 years just walk away?
That is a fabulous question. So I was definitely one of those people that thought, you know what, I am so indebted to the public education system that I'm going to work here my entire life and I'm never going to leave and it's going to be great. But what started to happen is I realized a lot of what was coming across from the district level, from the state level, was a lot of talk and not a lot of action. So I came from a special education department where we, would always say, we're a fully inclusive district and all means all. And that was like kind of our hashtag. And after a while, I started realizing, you know what? No, that's not what we're doing at all. And so I've always been a fierce advocate for children with disabilities. I feel like that started for me back when I was in the first grade, but that's a whole other story. And so I started pushing back a little bit. And so we were discussing reading assessments and creating new reading assessments because, we have so many children, that are not proficient in reading. And so I said, so how are we going to support teachers and children that don't read in a typical fashion or who are not verbal, who are not typically verbal? How are we going to assess them? And so that's part of my skill set, but it wasn't part of everyone's skill set. And I was told, don't worry about the 6%. And I said, well, we have to worry about the 6% because if we're saying that all means all, right, all is 100%, not 94%. And so I realized, I was in a system that, it looked good on the surface, that we could say we were fully inclusive and all means all and everyone is integrated and we have positive culture in all of our schools. But that simply was not true. And I realized that, that's hard for me. And I was not willing to be a part of a system that really wasn't moving forward and not doing what's right for every child. So really, my reason for growing and building Inclusivology is to make sure that every child is included in learning, whatever their learning style, whatever their disability, that they're included and they have equity. Have to have equity.
Right. I mean, it's one of those things where sometimes, depending on the situation, people tend to put up a front. So you're talking about, think about Emil Durkheim's front stage, backstage persona. You have people that backstage, they're themselves, they like to, they do what they feel is right for them and they act a certain way because it's their personality. Now, then you have people in the front that have to put up a smile, a face, and it's a fake it till you make it. So
right.
This is kind of that situation, where you're talking about putting words, but no actions, and just trying to make yourself look good.
Exactly. And that's really what it was. So, if I would say to, like a school administrator, do you provide inclusive supports for your students? Oh, yeah, yeah. I said, okay, so tell me a little bit more about that, or tell me what that looks like.
And then you have them, I don't know anything, just like trying to come up with something, but they can't really.
Right. Or it's, go ask the teacher, she'll have more information about that. And then I can only say that we might want to have a conversation about what that's supposed to look like.
So is this something you want to incorporate in every school district? I mean, we're talking about statewide, or is it just, do you want to expand it to where it goes from, I guess, state to state, not just in Florida?
I think there needs to be a drastic educational reform movement. And I know that, just as DJ and inclusivology, I'm not going to do that by myself, but I think we need to start somewhere. And so even if we start in Florida, regardless of the type of school that we start with, I think that it's important that we build school communities. We have to build inclusive school communities, because I've been to schools where, a teacher will say, oh yeah, we're really inclusive. I work, some of my kids go to that gen ed teacher's classroom. We're inclusive, but the whole school community isn't. And I guess my point in, being passionate about building inclusivology is that it goes beyond just a school. So if we build a school community, which means all the teachers, all the associates, the custodial staff, the cafeteria staff, the ladies in the front office, if it's a community, well, then that really should reflect what our community as a whole looks like. Right.
And then, we're not just, focusing on just inclusion, but we're talking about accessibility. Like when I was a kid in school, half the time, like, say for example, going to the restroom, everything in like the restroom, for example, it's not all accessible. Like that door to get to the restroom, it was so heavy. Like, and I would always ask, like, why is there no button there? Because there's kids in wheelchairs. There's kids that can't push the door, and there might not be anybody there around to help them or to get around the school, and then I have this, then when I was at UCF, and this really put me, kind of infuriated me a little bit, but the campus is huge. The stops to get to the shuttles are like far away. And then I used to walk that campus. Now eventually my body got used to it, and then one day I was so exhausted and I had to take my final, and I saw somebody in a cart and I asked them for a ride. And can you guess what their response was?
Was it no? Or I don't have time?
It was no, because you're a liability.
Wow. Wow.
But fortunately, I had somebody, under the table who was super nice. Like when nobody was looking, he would pick me up and drop me off where I needed to go. He's like, whenever you see me and if there's nobody around, I'll take you. So he was kind of a guardian angel in a sense.
I love that.
So yeah, there needs to be work, not just in our public schools, but we're talking about colleges and universities too.
Absolutely. And just taking it back to, a simple button in order to open up a door. Not only does that make things more accessible, but it also creates independence. And I think in our schools right now, it's very easy, for a district to say, well, we'll just give you, a high needs associate, or we'll give you someone that can be with you on campus. Well, no, because the ultimate goal is to make people as independent and empowered as possible. So whether that means making an environment accessible, And, one of my things is, just because you have a ramp at your school or a button that opens up your front door does not mean that your campus is accessible for everyone. It doesn't.
And then here's the worst part about that is the stuff they have for to assist students. It's not built safely enough. We're dealing with a safety issue too, because sometimes I'll be seeing a ramp or a rail, and it's not situated properly, and I'm like, I don't feel safe going up this on my own because I have, having CP, I have balance issues. So right. So I'm like, if I don't feel safe going up that rail, no one else is.
So just out of curiosity then, did they ever ask for your feedback? Were they ever open to feedback from you?
I don't remember, but I do know when I was at UCF, I was part of a panel of the first ever inclusion panel for disabilities.
Nice.
In school history. I was actually the only alum to serve in that panel too, the first one and the only one. So yeah, we got to talk about feedback and things that we need to improve our school. And it's something that I do now as a motivational speaker, as I bring awareness to it. And then I also did a panel when I went to my community college as well. I was the youngest panel member there, and then we got to it was a disability services panel, so we got to talk about the services offered.
Nice.
Things that we could do there to help assist students. And when I was younger, I never really got as far as accessibility, there wasn't much of feedback that I could give because I was just a child at the time, so I couldn't really tell you whether or not I was asked to give feedback. But as I got older, and when it came to the inclusion side and IEPs and stuff like that, yeah, I was able to have my input.
So one of the things that I do with inclusivology is, really understanding what the word accessible and accessibility means and looks like. So part of it, I think, in schools is that there's just an incredible lack of knowledge on what that means and what tools are available. And understanding that their tools and supports, they're not something that's giving someone an extra edge or is giving someone an unfair advantage. And I just think about, assistive technology, that is not meant to give someone, an upper hand in anything. It's meant to be a support. It's meant to create independence and bridge a gap between, maybe, for example, like if you have a fourth grader who's not yet reading on grade level, but it needs some support to make that text accessible. Well, then why couldn't that passage be read aloud? If the goal of the lesson is to access content. If students can't access content because they can't read, then we need to give them a tool in order to kind of to bridge that gap, because we can't keep saying, well, he doesn't read, or he's not a reader, or he doesn't get it. Like, okay, well, then do something about it. But if teachers don't know what to do, then they don't know why, and they don't know how. And so that's a big piece of what we do in inclusivology, is that, it's easy to understand the what, but you have to know why and how to do something in order to do what's right for kids. And, there's nothing wrong with having multiple tools available, showing them to students, and giving them an opportunity to make a choice, to empower them to say, you know what, if you need speech to text, go ahead and use it. If you need to change your seat with flexible seating, change it. It's okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I was fortunately given the luxury to do that, to do those things, and then as I got older, I was able to advocate for myself, which brings me to my point as well. I'm an advocate for middle school students. Now,
nice. Okay.
I used to work as an assistant middle school teacher for AmeriCorps. So I used to be in the classroom all the time, working with students, on their academics,
Mm-hmm.
being there in the classroom in case they needed support. And then I would also, because the district, the Orange County was so short on one-on-ones, sometimes I would assist a student that had different needs. So
Mm-hmm.
I would for example, last year when I was at Odyssey Middle School, I would actually assist a student sometimes uh, with his reading, and he was autistic. So what
Mm-hmm.
I would do was, because he had a hard time reading, I'd be like, all right, so do you want to read together, and we'll read it together and go over the question together? And sometimes you get all excited. He's like, yeah, let's do it. And we'll read it together and go over the questions. And sometimes it got me really sad because with the one-on-ones not being available, it really puts a hamper on the student and it makes him fall behind.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But part of being an advocate is especially at the middle school level, I would think, is to help kids advocate so they can advocate for themselves.
Oh yeah, I've been pushing it this year with my because I work with all boys from sixth grade boys.
Mm-hmm.
So with them, I had a student the other day ask me, can you see if you can get notes from a teacher? And I'm like, all right, so you need notes, right? So why don't we go together,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll be with you, and you can ask, and then if it's a little difficult for you, then I'll step in. And that's what,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I do with the kids. And we talk about life situations and things that they might need help with, and
Mm-hmm.
just be there for them, because sometimes the parents might be working two jobs. One parent might not be in their life. I've kids that
Right.
don't have mothers and fathers, and they live with their grandparents or their aunts
Sure.
and uncles. And it's a wonderful job. Like, and I've been in the education system for 5 years, but I have family
Mm-hmm.
that spans 5 decades in education.
Nice. I love that.
And some of them were college professors.
Mm-hmm.
My my stepmom is in special education herself, and she's been doing special education for a good 25 years, and she's still in it. And she retired for briefly, but then she got back into it. And then there's me. I kind of stepped into the next generation. So, and I honestly, in a million years, never thought I would step in a classroom and do education. My actual dream was to be a meteorologist. And when I did math, I was like, nope, this isn't for me. Nope.
Well, and I also love too, in addition to supporting students, you're also a motivational speaker.
I am. I like I said, I been able to share my life story and my journey, and it's wonderful to see everyone's reaction. And that's where I kind of started the podcast. Was I started out with my journey, and I
Mm-hmm.
said, why not start with bringing in people with different stories to share that are motivating,
Mm-hmm.
inspiring, and captivating, and then that'll motivate them to be like, you know what, this isn't so bad. I want to share my story, because I've had people that listen to the podcast and they're like, I've been sitting here all these years afraid to share my story, and there's all these people coming out and sharing theirs, and maybe I should do that too. And that's my
It's
goal.
that is so powerful though, to give people permission. Sometimes people need permission to have those hard conversations and to share something that they might not necessarily want to share. Because I feel like we all have a story. We all have a
Yeah,
story. And if it helps to empower someone else, that's awesome.
yeah. And what I found really awesome was that you mentioned that you work with disabled pets, and you have
Mm.
pugs and things like that. So tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. So um, I adopted my first little rescue pug back in 2009. I've had pugs for at least 15 years. My first little rescue pug came to me. He was blind. He had a back injury. He had all kinds of stuff. He was an absolute disaster.
Oh.
And so I really had to figure out like, well, how am I going to help him in the best way to make him independent so he doesn't have to be with his mommy all the time. So I realized that my skill set working with kids with disabilities was perfect for dogs, and pugs are just my breed. And so I worked really hard with him to make him independent and give him tools in order to be independent. So, I would have people, say all the time, like, oh, it's so sad that he's blind. And I said, it's not sad that he's blind. It's not sad at all. He is independent. He is alpha. He is just fabulous. And I lost him just this past October.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But thank you. But he came from a medical foster home before he came to me. And so after working with him, I realized, it's a gift that I have, and I really love it. So I have dogs they come in and out of my house all the time. And so I know how to do rehab with a wheelchair in order to build strength and mobility. I know how to help a dog navigate through a home. If they're blind or visually impaired, I know how. There's just so many little tricks of the trade that I know how to do. And so for me, I'm able to educate potential adopters. So because a lot of times, it might be scary to think, well, I'm getting a dog that's blind, or I'm getting a dog with medical issues. But if I can do all of the problem solving, I can create all the accommodations and modifications that they need. And so when someone is ready to adopt a dog with a disability, I can say, hey, this is the list of all the things that they're going to need. These are special things you can put on the floor. These are special little scented things that you can use so they can find their way around your house with scents. Here's how to set up an environment if you have a dog that has mobility issues, so there's always a lot of little things that I can do and share with potential adopters. And the beautiful thing is that there are so many people in the world that have a huge heart for pets with disabilities. So I always have a revolving door of at least one pug that needs some additional support. I actually have one sleeping at my feet right now. So in addition to that, though, it's a great opportunity to work with children. So, while I don't have children of my own, I live in an amazing neighborhood where there's tons of children that are outside all the time because it's Florida and it's beautiful to be outside. So they get a chance to meet all of my pets, and they think it's really fun that Miss DJ has like a different dog every other month or so. I have somebody different, but it's a good opportunity for them to learn and understand that it doesn't matter that there's a disability or that they're different. Everybody's different.
Right. And the good thing about the about children and pets is when they see a pet with a disability, they're like, oh, but he has a disability too. So it's like it brings back that confidence, of like, oh, well, if they have a disability, it's okay for me to have one. And then from there, you start building that self-confidence to believe in themselves and show them that, you might have a disability and it might take you longer to do things, but eventually you'll get to where you need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it all goes back to, feeling empowered and feeling confident and growing that sense of independence. I think that sometimes it's such a hindrance that, when we, hold children back, or we don't have high expectations for them, disability or not.
Yeah. And, and you say you work 100% in inclusion. I see 101% with those pets.
It's fun. I mean, that is something that comes from my heart for sure. And it's hard. I sacrifice sleep a lot of the time. But I love it. It's really great.
Have you written any books at all as far as what you do?
I have not written a book yet. I do have a blog. I have a blog on my website, and I also, I post it on Facebook and LinkedIn and things like that. But my blog it's a nice little mix of some really important technical things that we need to know as educators, but then it's also, my stories working with children over the years. It's a little bit of pugs and their disability. And it's just, so I'm hoping that someday, I can take my blog and turn that into a book. A little bit of like a chicken soup for the soul, but maybe DJ's soup for the soul or something like that.
Yes, something that'll help encourage others and motivate them. And I'm glad that not just myself is out there advocating, but you yourself with with children with disabilities and our education system. And I gotta thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
So thank you for doing what you do.
Well, and I think that it's well past time that we have to have voices out there that are saying it's just not right. Education has to be equitable.
Right.
It just does. And so I don't know, back to what I said at the beginning, part of why it's not equitable is because people don't know what to do. And if they don't know the what, then they don't know the why and the how.
Right. And you see it a lot in our kids. Like sometimes I'll see kids and I'm like, he has so much potential, but he's being held back because the parents don't know. Like when I was younger, when I had my biological mom, when she was alive, she was a very young mom. She was 16 years old when she had me. And she we're talking about a young teen mom, you have a disabled son and my younger brother as well. And when you have a disabled son and you're practically a teenage girl with no experience, you have no idea but to put him somewhere. And I started in the education system. I started at the very, very, very bottom, which is special education in the unit. I started there.
Yeah.
And then for a few years, I spent it with my biological mom and my stepmom and then my dad. All three of them together were a cohesive unit.
Wow.
Fortunately, there was co-parenting involved.
Yes.
She passed away when she was 23, and then my stepmom had to make a choice. Either continue on with with life, living my youth, and getting my degree, which she got her degree eventually. And she chose to, she's like, I see potential in this child. And I think I'm going to take him in for the ride and give him the life he was never supposed to have, because I wasn't supposed to walk, read, write, none of that stuff. And fast forward now, I got my degree and everything. And it goes to show that with the proper support system, with people encouraging you, with people including you in things that you need, it is possible.
It is. And I love what you said about your stepmom, that, she had to make a decision. And so she obviously not only made a decision, but it sounds like she knew what to do for you when you were younger.
And she gave me tough love, a lot of tough love, but it was worth it. I mean, she was on me all the time, and still to this day.
I don't think that ever stops.
No, still to this day.
Yeah.
But I am forever grateful, and I tell people I credit her for saving my life, because without her, I don't think there would be me here today.
Wow. Well, I mean, you sound so inspiring, and that so many, younger kids can see themselves in you, and you've done it. I think it's amazing. And I really love the fact that you're out there as a speaker, and you're providing that additional level of awareness and education.
Yeah, and that's something with these kids that I want to instill in them. So sometimes I'm a little hard on them, And I talked to him. I'm like, I'm not hard on you because I don't like you. I'm hard on you because I believe in you. I have faith in you. When nobody else does, I do.
Yes. Well, because you understand as well. You know, you've been there. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is where we both come in and just continue on with our journeys as far as inspiring and motivating these kids. And I think we're doing a pretty good job. We still have a lot of work to do, but we'll get there.
We will get there. Yeah. Well, and as like I always say, like baby steps will still get you there. And that's okay. And, you know, one of the things that Inclusivology does is, you know, I provide training in a different manner than training has been provided before. So in my previous district, you know, we would have training, but there was no time for follow-up. So how do you have training with no follow-up? So then you can tell people what to do, but then if they don't know, you know, what happens, you know, after training, and now suddenly they're not sure what to do, and there's no one to ask.
Right, exactly.
So my way of educating school communities is to provide background knowledge. A lot of times there's no background knowledge. So you have to have the background knowledge first. So if you don't have that, there's an opportunity to grow that. And then, you know, of course, there's training, but then there's coaching that comes after that. When those unique situations come up, when you're not sure what tool to use to make something accessible for a child, if you're not sure how to tackle, you know, specially designed instruction, when it's time to ask those questions, like, well, how do I do X, Y, and Z? There's me to actually answer those questions and to make it relevant. You know, it has to be relevant, and including everybody is relevant. It has to be relevant.
Exactly. You hit the nail right on the coffin. We have to include everyone, no matter what. And
no matter what.
I truly admire what you're doing, and I see big things from both of us eventually, and especially you, because you've been out there for longer than I've been probably doing this for longer than I've been alive.
Well, and the funny thing too is that, so, you know, I spent the 26 years in education, but my adventure really started back in my childhood. So it's really been, it's kind of been a lifelong passion. It really has been.
And I'm looking forward to sharing this episode with everyone. And where can they find you, like your information, and learn about Inclusivology?
So they can find me on Facebook. I have a Facebook page for my business, or they can go to www.inclusivology.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn under DJ Nicholson, or they can find my Inclusivology business page there as well.
Awesome. And I'll definitely share this in the description when the episode airs. And DJ, it's been a pleasure. It's been fun.
It has been fun. This is great.
Being able to share our own personal stories of struggles and up to success, and hopefully with our hard work and dedication towards inclusion and advocacy, we can make the world a more accessible place for everyone.
Absolutely. I love it, David. That sounds awesome.
So thank you. And you're able to find this episode on iTunes, Spotify, every other major podcasting outlet you listen to. And as I always say, if I can do it, so can you. But also remember that if DJ can bring inclusion and accessibility and be an advocate, so can you. So thank you guys, and I hope you have a wonderful day.